So we always hear every good entrepreneur always
Yes.
asks the question to themselves, what need am I filling in the
Right.
marketplace? So with LA for Hire, when you had that sort of epiphany moment on the subway, what were you thinking the need is that you're filling?
The need definitely was, I found myself when I was a development executive, I'd been started out as a creative executive for a producer at Disney, and then I worked at Sand Dollar, which I felt very fortunate to work there. It was one of the biggest management companies in Hollywood, and we had deals at Universal and Disney, and I always loved working with writers, and they're different executives that have different strengths, and I found that working with writers and helping them bring out their best work was constantly feedback that I would get from the writers I was working with, and just loved that process so much. And then when I was on my own in between jobs, and my friend had suggested, why don't you do consulting? And as it was, I kept getting people coming to me for advice with their scripts and how to make it better. And so I just decided, all right, well, let me turn this into a real business. And the other need was definitely when I looked at companies, producers, filmmakers all over the world, that, like, I had a friend who was a producer in Germany, and he spoke English fluently, and he asked me for help on a project where he said, I need to know how to talk to the agents. And it wasn't that he didn't speak English, his English was perfect. He said he felt like he didn't know the right way to pitch things, the kind of buzzwords and so on to get taken seriously and so on. So that's another thing I do with my company. I coach emerging filmmakers, or it can even be existing professionals, how to improve the way they present their material. And I had also noticed many times that a writer might pitch an idea and it doesn't sound that interesting. So I'll start asking questions, and as I start to pull out more information, I go, and then we put a different spin on it that can convey the idea more strongly. So a lot of times I feel that writers can undersell their property. They don't have the right kind of spin to communicate. And this is another thing. Writers, because they live with their characters, have lived with their characters for years, and in the process of writing months, they know their characters so well that there sometimes is the unconscious feeling that when they're writing something on the page or giving a log line, that we're going to know all the the dots between, or the connections between the dots. So I think it's an important process for writer, producer to be able to find the best way to articulate their concept, obviously, but because they might have a great idea and they might not be communicating in the best way possible. And the other thing is with companies, let's say in Europe, is understanding who are the names that really trigger movies in terms of actors. Because a lot of times people mention names and they don't necessarily, even if it's a wonderful actor who's well respected, they might not trigger the sale. It might not be a name that's meaningful to a Netflix or Fox Searchlight and so on. So that's one of the things that I will know. And the only reason why I will know is because I'm in constant contact on a daily basis with people who know a lot more than me. So it's not that I'm so brilliant or that it's rocket science, but it's being able to have access. I feel like every day I'm always learning more from people who are more in the know than I am.
It's interesting what you say about communication. I know this is a little bit of a tangent I'm going off on, but I just read an article about managers and ones with high IQ versus ones with maybe more of a normal IQ, and how the ones with a high IQ actually were more off-putting and they didn't realize that about themselves. So it sounds like with sometimes just the communication, and it's not maybe that they were even coming across as, well, I know more. It was just their communication style was different, and so people couldn't relate to it. So it sounds like too with writers, because they're so internal, they don't maybe they just need just how to speak.
A little bit of an objective point of view, because it is very internal. You're living and I know for myself, when I'm working, I also manage a few select writers, and when I'm working with them, they'll often say, okay, I need a fresh set of eyes. And if I've gone through multiple drafts, I'll get to a point where I'll say that I want to show this to an industry colleague, or let's get a reader who I trust, and let's get their thoughts. I think we all need at a certain point an objective set of eyes to look at material. And the balance, of course, is being able to do that without losing yourself and your core vision. And I think one of the things you and I had talked about was the notion of if you're looking for a mentor, is it good to have someone give critique of your project or not? I say absolutely, but it should be a respected professional or someone whose opinion you really respect. It can be a friend who's quite intelligent or has a good sense of story, but definitely don't protect yourself by not asking someone who may not have your best interest at heart and would just criticize to be critical.
Sure. And I actually want to ask you more about that later in terms of also to someone that might be too nice because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but it ends up hurting you in the end. Just real quickly, Wendy, I mean, I know why I love watching writer Q&As. I find writers fascinating. What is it about writers that interests you so much?
Oh, goodness. I would say maybe from the time I was a child, I just loved stories as a way of immersing ourselves into another world. I think also any kind of problems we as human beings have, or children, when you see another character going through something difficult, there's an empathic connection that you make and that you can vicariously experience what they're going through. A lot of times I think it can be therapeutic and healing, and I think that is the magic of great films as well as great literature. It's connecting to the universal themes, or what Carl Jung talks about, the collective unconscious, and that and I know that when a lot of people will speak about the importance of films, that you can reach such a huge audience that ranges for, ethnic, cultural, socioeconomic. A great case in point, I have many favorite movies, so I don't want to isolate this as my favorite of all time, but one of my favorite movies I felt was so powerful was The Wrestler. And I said, okay, what does an upper middle class, young woman from New York have in common with a wrestler? I don't even watch the sport. Nothing. But that character's plight, the way he was an outsider, the way he had regrets, the way he wanted to fix some part of his past and mend his relationship with his daughter, was just so moving and so powerful. I mean, I found myself at the end of the movie crying. So I love that about movies. And I love that writers can create, whether it's Aaron Sorkin, who's such a master of dialogue, to Guillermo del Toro, who can create such an extraordinary immersive world. It's just the magic of storytelling. And I'd say really being able to vicariously experience someone else.
Yeah, I love The Wrestler. I want to watch that now. Yeah. You've re-emerged this. I want to rent it again. Yeah.